In this lesson titled Protecting Workbooks, we're in Workbook Lesson 11, Security, and we're currently on the Worksheet tab, Budget. Sometimes you may have the experience of trying to open an Excel document and it asks for a password. And you might be thinking that would be kind of nice to be able to do that yourself. In this lesson, we're going to talk about protecting workbooks with a password. Let me show you how to do that. Go to File and go to Save As. The trick with saving with a password is to start with Save As and then find the password option. So here we see More Options. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to move this over here. This is our Save As Options dialog box. I'm going to open this up. And from here we can change the name, and we can even change the format that we're saving it in. We have lots of different formats. Like they might want an older format, or you could even save this as HTML document, or as a text, or tab delimited text. Lots of options here. We're just going to use the most common Excel workbook format. But buried all the way down here, down where you would normally click your Save button, is the Tools Options. And inside of there is General Options. Once you finally get there, you can see here Password to Open and Password to Modify. We also have a Always Create Backup. And then down here at the bottom we have Read Only Recommended. So there are 4 options, and depending on which ones you click here, you can have a lot of different variabilities. The most common one is simply to put a password right here, Password to Open. So I could say PW and hit OK. Now right here it's saying re-enter password to proceed. PW. Basically, it's asking you twice because if you forget, it's a real problem. I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to say Save. Now, it already exists. Do you want to replace it? Yes, I do. Because we're doing Save As instead of just Save, it will ask you if you want to replace it if it sees the same name, and we're going to say OK. So it saved it back over it again. So when I close this and try to open, we'll see what effect we had. So I'm going to go here to close. And we get Excel, but there are no workbooks, just the Excel application. I'm going to go to File, and I'm just going to open up the most recent. And now it's asking for the password. I'm going to put in PW. So there's the most common use. Now let's go over that one more time because it really is buried in Excel. So we go to File and say Save As. Once we get to Save As, we want to go to More Options, and we get this Save As dialog box, and then we need to go all the way down here next to the Save button, Tools, and General Options. And the general options are all about saving this document under a password. Now, if I was to click here and say Read Only Recommended and do not have a password, when you open the document, it'll just simply say it's recommended that this is read only and lets you decide if, in fact, you want read only. That might be very useful to just say, hey, you really shouldn't be changing this data. For everyone I'm sharing this with, they should just have read-only. Now, they still have an option to edit the document, but you can always ask them to read-only. Then, of course, there's this other option here, Password to Modify. So you could have one password to open it, and yes, they can open it and they can read it, but they're unable to modify anything unless they know this password. And when they try to make a change, it will ask them for their password. And last but not least is always create a backup. So if I check this box, there will always be a backup for this file. Every time you save it, you cannot save over the original. It's going to be modified to be a different name. So it'll always be a backup. So there you go. There's your 4 choices. Create a backup, password to open, password to modify, and the read-only recommended statement before they can open the document. I'll hit cancel.